So as I said, welcome everyone for today's webinar where we are launching the Dignified Futures Research Network, which is a new collaborative initiative that is very fresh, just today getting started with the website being launched today, and we will share about this as we go. So for the agenda of today, we thought of starting off with a brief introduction of the people that are behind the network idea and the network conceptualization. It's a mixed group of researchers and practitioners from different countries, different organizations, and academic institutions. And we're going to share a few words about who we are just to get you to know us and share our passion for the network and the community-based research that it wants to promote with you. Then we will share a few slides where we go more into the detail of the network to basically guide you through what the network is about, the kind of activities that we are planning to have, the values that underpin the network, and guide you through what to next steps on what to expect and how to join the network if you want to be part of our community of knowledge and practice, which hopefully you will want to. And finally, we will have a few minutes left for a Q&A section if you have any question, any comments that you will want to share with us. This meeting is being recorded because we are all spread in very different countries. So this was the only time that was working for all of us that are behind the network. There are many colleagues and partners based in Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Africa that wanted to be present, and unfortunately they cannot due to the time difference. So we are recording the webinar, and we will make it available on YouTube in the next days. If anyone among the participants has issues with the recording, please do drop a message in the chat and we will make sure to address your concern. And also please use the chat if you want to communicate throughout the webinar. If you have any question or thought, you can use the chat box. We will be using English as the language to communicate throughout today's presentation. If that is not a language that you're comfortable with, you can use the caption button in your screen to select a language of your choice. So I think with the housekeeping rules, that is all. And we can now move into a brief round of introductions just to share a bit more about ourselves. I will start. My name is Marta Furlan, and I'm working with the Freed Slaves as the Senior Program Manager for Research. So I'm basically the person within Freed Slaves in charge of designing, implementing, and launching all the research projects that the organization does. And personally, I'm very passionate about community-based research. One of the things that I love the most about my work is the opportunity to visit the communities, work with them, and think with them about participatory approaches, participatory methodologies through which we can do the research and disseminate the research once it has been concluded. I am very passionate about working with the communities to make sure that our findings not only reach high level people, but really go back to the grassroots levels where they were produced. And this is some of the things that I'm passionate about and that drove me towards the network initiative. I will now pass it on to my colleagues from the Secretariat to say a few words about themselves in whatever order you want.
I'll jump in. Hi, I'm Angela Robinson. I'm a full-time researcher at an academic institution in the United States. I'm at the University of California, Irvine, and I've been really fortunate there to be able to craft research partnerships and projects in the anti-exploitation space that are of interest to me and that have applied impacts in the communities and the organizations and for the participants that I partner with. So like Marta, I've always been very passionate about community engaged research and really, only care about research to the extent that it directly connects to people's everyday experiences and makes makes opportunities to improve people's lives. So very excited. Thank you to Marta for your leadership on this initiative, and very excited to be involved in this project alongside other researchers and community leaders who are doing such great work. So I'll pass it on to the next person.
I can jump. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning and good afternoon, depending on where you are. It's late afternoon here in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. My name is Daniel Mellesa. I am the founder and the CEO of Nigat Global Initiative, a national civil society organization based in Ethiopia. Our work focuses on survivor-centered reintegration, safe migration, and addressing trafficking not only as an emerging issue, but as a systemic challenge shaped by economic vulnerability, unsafe pathways, and digital recruitment networks. So in recent years, we have seen the need to engage in diversified research components, specifically supporting survivors returning from scam compounds in Southeast Asia and survivors from other forms of exploitation. So what we have learned is clear. Rescue and short-term assistance are not enough. Reintegration without prevention and prevention without evidence will not disrupt these systems that we wanted to work with. So it's really with great pride that we joined Dignified Futures Research Network as a secretariat member, because we believe deeper collaboration across regions is essentials, including source, transit, and also destination countries. So I am grateful to be part of this, and I look forward to building truly dignified futures together. Over to the next person.
I can jump in. Hi, everyone. Yes, I echo what Daniel said about all of the time zones and welcome. I too am the late afternoon Daniel, because I'm based in the UK, and echo what Angela said about Martha's leadership. So it's lovely to see you all. So I'm Beth Jackson. I am an academic. I'm a researcher based at the University of Nottingham in the UK. I sort of wear dual hats. I'm a senior research fellow, so I run my own research project that's focused on the UK context. And I mainly look at the conditions of climate change and how they impact on decent working conditions. And then with my other hat, I am the lead on climate change and work in the Rights Lab, which is based at the university and looks specifically at different typologies of exploitation in a broader context. And I'm really passionate about the ethical side of research and conducting research in that space, and have been involved in a couple of projects that have been focused specifically on that in terms of anti-trafficking research and working with peer researchers in particular. So it's the ethics angle that I am particularly interested in that probably most applies to the Dignified Research Network. And I'll pass on to the next person.
I can go next. Hello, everyone. It's morning for me, so good morning, good afternoon for everyone else that are in other parts of the world. My name is Nicole Gallego. I work with the nonprofit organization El Pozo de Vida, which is based in Mexico City. I am also an adjunct professor at the National University here in Mexico City at the National School of Social Work. I am primarily a practitioner. I do a lot of social intervention design, a lot of monitoring and evaluation. And I have done some research as well in the area of human trafficking, specifically the demand side, studying here consumers of prostitution here in Mexico. And I'm very excited to be part of this network. I've been really interested in participatory methods. And on the nonprofit side, we've tried to implement several kinds of participatory methods while doing social diagnosis or needs assessments, and we haven't. Sometimes the methods in theory work great, but in practice not so much. So I'm really excited to be able to co-construct with everyone here in this group.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mantai Dada. I'm a professor at the University of Richmond in Richmond, Virginia, in the United States. And I guess first I just want to express my gratitude for Marta for her brilliance and compassion and the grace and warmth that she's helped create this community. As an academic, I have to stand in the fact that academics can sometimes be arrogant and we think we're smarter than other people and all of those terrible things. When I think the purpose of being an academic is to help serve the community. Um, I live in Richmond, Virginia, and historically, Richmond was the heart of one of the major hubs of the American slave trade. And so the perspective I'm leaning in on for my research is how do we make connections between the past and the present? At the same time, I'm living here in the United States, and I'm mindful of the United States as a government and its own role in global exploitation. And so I'm just very mindful of my positionality and the fact that I think to be successful in anti-slavery, we need to work together. I'm very happy to contribute my expertise in quantitative methodology, but at the same time, I have to admit that to really hope to end slavery, we have to collaborate, we have to cooperate, and it has to be in a way where we're trying to treat each other equally, survivors and non-survivors, and being respectful of our differences and being able to build on our respected insights that is based on a sense of common dignity and understanding of each other. So I'm thrilled to be a part of this community, and I'm grateful for everybody on this call.
Thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves. And I wrote in the chat for all the participants if you would like to introduce yourself using the chat box so that we can get to know each other. That would be wonderful. Now, I will share my screen so that we can have a look at what is this network really about and what are we planning to do in the next weeks and months ahead. So allow me to share my screen. Okay, can you give me a thumbs up if you're seeing the PowerPoint? Perfect. Okay, so this community was born out of a shared need for support and connection among researchers, practitioners, and survivors that have a common interest in community-based and community-oriented research. It started with some conversation inside Freedom Slaves when we doing this kind of research as our day-to-day approach to research projects. We realized that we were really looking for connections of this kind and that we couldn't really find a space where these connections could be easily built. So we started to share thoughts and ideas with people that are part of this space, that work in this space, either as researchers, as practitioners. We benefited a lot from the support of the GLC, Global Learning Community, that facilitated a series of first exploratory meetings during which those first ideas were shared and started to take shape and ultimately led into setting up the network as you will be knowing it today. As a network, our aims are mainly three. First, do research in the communities, with the communities, and for the communities. What does it mean? It means that we don't see research as simply the act of visiting a community, collecting some data, and then leaving. We rather want to see research as a continuous process whereby we engage meaningfully with the communities from the inception of the research up until the phase of dissemination, passing through data collection and data analysis. So we want to see research as an opportunity for forging these meaningful relationships and for engaging the communities throughout the knowledge production process in a collaborative way, which also means having to look beyond what we are used to do when it comes to collecting and analyzing data, looking beyond what perhaps we learned during our studies in the university, and make space for different ways of producing research, different ways of generating data, different ways of doing analysis, which connects a lot with the decolonizing knowledge. So making space for different approaches. The second aim is to bring the research back to the community. This means that we don't see research findings as something that will end up in a report that will be uploaded on some website and will ultimately be accessible only for a restricted, well-literate elite. But we really want to bring the findings back to those communities where the findings were produced. And this calls for thinking outside of the box when it comes to disseminating the research. So how can we bring the research back to the community? In what form? And this requires also thinking of cultural appropriate ways for doing it, both when it comes to the language, making research findings available in a language that people from the community can relate to and can truly access the research findings, but also the format. The classic report, the peer-reviewed paper is not appropriate in all situations. So we may want to think of different ways in which to do that. Perhaps a radio interview or some sort of a billboard infographic, something that really communities can relate more to. And this process of bringing the findings back to the community for us is critical, because only with that step, communities can truly use the research to be empowered, to benefit from the knowledge that has been created, and to use that knowledge to then take certain actions for promoting their rights and to do advocacy campaigns, to basically act on the knowledge that has been put together. And finally, we want to use the research to inform community-based interventions. As a group, mixed group of researchers and practitioners, we see a clear gap between research spaces where the research is produced and discussed, and programmatic spaces where interventions on the ground are discussed, put together, and then implemented. We think there is an opportunity to create a better bridge between these two worlds, to make sure that the interventions that we create in a certain context are grounded in clear evidence, in clear findings. So we want to use this network as that kind of space where research and practice go together and speak to each other more. Now, one of the questions that we've been discussing quite a lot over the past months when we were talking about the network, and a question that has been coming up again and again is what can make this network unique? Because we are not the first research network focused on anti-trafficking work. We are very much aware of this. So we were thinking of what is really the need that this network aims to address. What is the gap that we are wanting to fill? And these are some elements that we believe make this network unique, and a space that can create opportunities for collaboration with pre-existing networks by bringing in something new, something fresh. One of these is include all stakeholders in the knowledge production process, going back a bit to what I said before, making sure that the communities that we work with are not just groups of people that we visit to collect the data and then forget about, but that they are continuously and meaningfully involved throughout the life of a research project, from when we set it up and when we want to engage with the communities to understand what are their priorities, what are their needs. Maybe oftentimes we develop research questions in our own organizations, institutions, and we assume that those are addressing communities' needs. But maybe then when we visit the community, when we engage them, when we really ask them, what do you need? We find out that there is a space for reformulating or rewording some of our questions. So we want to make sure that the community's voices inform the research that we do and how we do it throughout the life of a research project. Another element that makes this network unique is that we want to offer a survivor-friendly space where survivors can learn and do research. And here we are thinking both of those survivors, those people with lived experience that have already had opportunities to engage in research at some point, so they already come with a certain set of skills that perhaps they want to put in practice, they want to enhance, strengthen, but also survivors that have never had such an opportunity and are interested in gaining this kind of knowledge and exposure. So we want to use this network as a safe space, and we will return to the ethics and safety that will inform the work of this network to make sure that research doesn't remain something that only researchers with an academic degree or practitioners do, but that we engage meaningfully also the voices of people with lived experience who are interested in being part. Thirdly, collaborate with communities in a responsible and sensitive way. Clearly, having this kind of engagement with the communities is not something that can be done superficially. It requires a lot of thinking through. It requires setting up appropriate procedures, protocols to make sure that the engagement with the communities responds to the highest standards of ethical research, principles like do no harm, and that our engagement with them remains throughout all the life of a project responsible, sensitive, and ethical. Fourthly, give recognition and credibility to research that is produced in collaboration with the communities. My colleague Monty before said something very true, that a lot of the times in academic circles there is a certain arrogance whereby we are the only ones that know how to do research, so follow our lead. And we want to challenge that. We want to create a research produced together with the communities, together with people with lived experience that gets recognition and credibility even in the academic spaces. And I think the fact that this network brings together a very different group of people, some academics, some are practitioners, some are survivors, some are community leaders, will be very important to make our research diverse, reflective of that diversity, and credible in all spaces. And finally, bridge the gap between knowledge and programmatic intervention. As I said before, these are two worlds that don't speak with each other well enough and systematically enough. So we want to create a space where we can use the findings to inform programmatic interventions. It's very important to create this dialogue to make sure that interventions are rooted in the evidence, but also to make sure that the evidence that we produce doesn't end up on a shelf, doesn't end up into a report that after a few months or years will get forgotten, but that it will be used to actually inform certain actions on the ground. And I will now invite my colleague Angela to continue the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Marta. I'm going to talk a bit about the values that underlie the approaches that we are utilizing within the network. And the first is conducting trauma-informed research. So research that is trauma-informed and recognizes the emotional and psychological toll of research on community members, people with lived experience, but also the people working within organizations who are doing the work, and the people who are planning and conducting the research. So we know that this work can be emotionally and psychologically tiring, can have traumatic effects on people who are participating in research from any position. And we also recognize that experiences of trauma are shaped by a diverse set of lived experiences that everyone brings to the table. So we really prioritize trauma-informed practices that will nurture a supportive environment, prioritize the well-being of everyone engaged in the research projects that we are involved in, and enable the people in the network and the communities that they work in to thrive. Secondly, we are advocating for research that is collaborative and really rooted in principles of meaningful and substantial survivor engagement across the research cycle. And so our work is guided by a commitment to this generation of knowledge that reflects and centers the voices and perspectives of people with lived experience of human trafficking and exploitation. Third, we recognize human trafficking as a violation of human rights, and that this violation is enabled by deep-rooted inequalities and systemic factors. So our network is committed to upholding human rights and ethical standards when we're conducting research that will ensure dignity and safety and respect for all individuals involved. So that includes ensuring that research is ethically approved, and that ethical approval is really rooted in protecting the well-being and safety of participants and those engaged in the research, ensuring that data is handled responsibly and that all stakeholders, and particularly those who are members of more vulnerable populations, are treated with care and respect throughout. And finally, the network is committed to amplifying the voices of people from marginalized communities and groups, and fostering partnerships that are truly equitable in nature. We are committed to promoting diverse representation in research and ensuring that marginalized and underrepresented communities have an opportunity and an equal role in shaping the knowledge and solutions that affect them. So our network will be helping members develop procedures that hold themselves accountable to that equality with the communities that they partner in. And finally, we want to share some of the activities that the network will be engaged in and that we hope you will join us in participating in. And so the first is training, and this includes exchanging training on research methods that are appropriate to community-based and community-oriented research on human trafficking. So exchanging this knowledge with one another and opening up the circle to people with lived experience and other and practitioners who are interested in learning about research methods. And so these trainings will focus on creative and original methods of data collection, so including techniques that are sometimes not used in academic spaces as much, including things like photo voice, transect walks, rivers of life, and other methodologies that are more participatory in nature or that engage people in ways that might be more reflective of the ways that communities engage with one another outside of the research context. And during these trainings, we'll also explore how these research methods can be decolonized and democratized so that the local methods of knowledge production are included in the research instead of excluded. The second activity is to share lessons learned from research and share out good practices related to doing this research as well. So ensuring that both findings and methodological insights are shared with communities. So we plan to hold sessions on how to conceptualize this type of research, how to plan and conduct field work, how to engage ethically with communities, and how to disseminate research among community members in ways that will be effective in bringing research into practice and meanwhile caring for people's mental health and well-being throughout the process as we engage on these possibly traumatizing or re-traumatizing topics. We also plan to work on a set of ethical guidelines that can guide community-based research activities and provide mutual advice and guidance and support on research ethics among this community within the network. So that includes helping people with support for preparing context-specific ethical protocols, thinking through all of those unique aspects of community-engaged research, and ensuring that ethics is front and center when we're planning research. Support for applying to relevant institutional or governmental research review boards, and developing policies for ethical and responsible data storage, usage, and management as we all navigate a world that is increasingly interconnected through technology and many things to think through as far as the ethics of how we store data and manage it in the long term. We also are interested in identifying gaps and needs within this research, and specifically identifying gaps that can be filled through participatory methods and community-based engagement. And so we are planning conversations around major contributions to the literature on human trafficking, and what are the theoretical and practice-based gaps in this collective knowledge. And we plan to develop a biennial research agenda that can be a useful reference for researchers and organizations and donors who are interested in this participatory type of engagement. Next, we plan to share ideas among researchers and organizations and survivors on how research findings can inform interventions and programs that are being conducted by grassroots actors, by NGOs, by civil service organizations, and by governments at the community level. So the purpose of this activity is to encourage better integration of community-based research and community-based practice, making sure that the findings from this research don't stay within a research report, but really are directly accessible for engagement with community-based interventions and practice. And finally, we aim to offer opportunities to connect with others who are engaged in community-based research and participatory methods, with the possibility of establishing research partnerships, both within the research community, within the practice community, and across those groups as well. And so we'll have multiple opportunities for networking throughout the year, both online and offline. So we also would like to discuss a few different areas where we envision groups of network members coming together to engage in particular shared objectives and work. So the first is a survivor and community engagement group that will really champion the ethical and meaningful involvement of survivors as well as communities throughout the research process. So that will include co-development of engagement standards, addressing training needs, and designing appropriate tools. The second group is a research to practice group that will bridge the gaps between research and community action. So identifying ways that we can turn those research findings into applied, practical, and grassroots interventions. The third is an ethics group that will focus on developing those locally rooted ethical guidelines, support institutional review board processes, and draft a shared code of ethics for the network's research activities. And finally, a knowledge mobilization group that will make research more accessible. So turning reports and findings into infographics, podcasts, and other formats that are engaging and accessible and not behind a paywall to ensure that the findings from research are returned to communities and engaging in regular communication about findings across the network. And we'll put these links in the chat, but we invite you to visit our website just launched, dignifiedfuturesnetwork.org. And we hope that you will consider becoming a member of the network and engaging with us in these activities and development of future directions and activities that are of interest to you as well. So we'll put the link in the chat, but it's also on the website if you would like to become a member of the network, and we hope you will.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you so much. I will now stop to share my screen. Okay, thank you. So I think this was like a brief overview of what the network is, what we are aiming to do, what are our underpinning values, and some of the activities that we are aiming and hoping to work on over the next months, and that we are hoping you will want to collaborate with us on. Now we can open to any follow-up question or comment from participants, if there is anything that you would want to ask that we didn't cover in enough detail, or if there is any immediate comment that you would want to share. We are very much looking forward to that. And in the meantime, Angela's been putting in the chat the link for to the website and the link for the form that you can fill in if you're interested in becoming a member and be more updated and more involved into some of those activities that Angela was overviewing before. And the link to the form is also available on the website, so you can always access it through the website itself as well. It looks like there aren't immediate questions or comments. If the other members of the Secretariat, Monta, Nicole, Beth, if you, or Daniel, if you want to add anything to the presentation that we just shared, something that you would want to emphasize, please feel free to unmute yourself. In the meantime, I also see that John is asking us, in the 4 domains that Angela presented, where does the actual research activities fit in? And the line is asking for more details on onboarding or application process. So I can perhaps, the line, answer your question, and then Angela, if you want to share more about the 4 domains and the research activities. So the line, to answer your question with the form, we're just collecting some basic information on part of people that are interested in joining the network, to have some more detail on previous research experience, areas of specific interest that the network is planning to cover, if there are certain activities that a person is identifying as being more relevant to their work, just to collect a bit of background information before reaching out to that person and welcoming them to the community. But again, it's a community open to everyone, and this application form is mostly meant as a very first screening on our end, and to identify your more immediate interests and make sure that we can involve you as relevantly and meaningfully as possible in the network's activities.
And then I can address John's question, but I think others might have other thoughts to add from the Secretariat group. So yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned there's not necessarily in the 4 groups that we've outlined a group focused on conducting the research. And I think that reflects our view that all of these processes of knowledge creation, we view all of these as ongoing processes where the ethics of research are embedded within the entire process. The bringing research to practice is not something that happens just at the end of the research, but throughout the planning process, throughout conducting the research, throughout bringing findings from a particular project back to the community, but then cycling back into planning for what is still needed. And so, and of course, that engagement with communities and people with lived experience is also a process that happens throughout. And so I think the conducting of the research itself will cut across all of those different areas and across the networking within members as well, to formulate projects based on shared interests across researchers and people in working in communities and people with lived experience. I don't know if anybody else from the Secretariat has anything else to add about this.
I'll jump in and just share that, when Marta, I think, first came to me with this idea, what excited me was the fact that we can maybe help break more boundaries. There's the academics sitting here, or the think tanks sitting there, the NGOs, and these sort of implicit respective hierarchies based on money and funding and dominance, race and ethnicity and power and privilege. What excites me is maybe helping break those boundaries in a way that can be very organic. And so, for instance, if there is a topic that speaks to anybody, um, I would be excited to connect with my background as somebody who likes to do data and statistics. And if there's a survivor inspired project, I would love to learn from that sort of lens because I'm stuck in my non-survivor positionality, right? I'm stuck in my inherent lack of full understanding. And so I personally just want to connect with others who are not normally in my network. And for me, I think that could be just sort of one possibility of what might grow when normally, I go to my academic conferences, I present my academic papers, and it's good professionally, but nobody reads them, right? I would just like to be in a space where we're connecting more between the global north, the global south, and that might be able to shake apart and loosen these paradigms of hierarchy that are everywhere in the human rights movement in general. So that's just one inspiration I have that I hope might help shape or even redefine the way the anti-slavery movement is currently structured that I feel sometimes is very unfair. And so for me, this is a selfish desire just to break out of my own shell. And hopefully the results can be beneficial to people who are in the real world, right? I mean, I love teaching, I love what I do, I love my students, but I'm in my silo and it's time for me to get out. So that's why I'm here out of that selfish interest to connect with others.
Thank you so much, Montai. And I see that Terry, you're writing in the chat about giving some research topics. I think this reminds me of something that I wanted to add before about the research agenda that we hope we can collaboratively build as part of this network. Something that excites me because I think there's a lot of research out there, and then people working in their own smaller spaces without necessarily talking with each other. And I think there's a need within the movement, the anti-trafficking movement, to have more cohesion in our research efforts, identify gaps in knowledge, perhaps forms of trafficking that have been less explored, geographic areas that have been less explored, with all that is happening in the world, climate crisis, advances in technology. There are so many new challenges coming up. So I think this having a research agenda that we can all use as a reference and agree on could be very helpful to make sure that our efforts are more synchronous, are more complementing each other. Also, when it comes to relationship with donors, identifying priorities, where to invest money and resources, having this collaborative effort that says this is a gap that we have identified, this is where we should be looking into generating more knowledge, and that I think it would be very valuable to make sure that our efforts are not competing against each other or replicating the work that others are doing, or that certain areas, certain communities, certain aspects of human trafficking remain continue to be not sufficiently acknowledged. And of course, for this research agenda to be reflective, we need, cannot be the six of us putting it together, but it really requires a vast community working on it, giving input, sharing what are their priorities, what is their perspectives, and try to capture all of that.
Martha, sorry. Go ahead, sorry, Betty.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, I was just going to say as well, like we have these 4 areas to begin with, but it might be something that as the network grows, other things might emerge. And I think that's something that I'm really excited about, where it might be there's actually a need for, X instead of Y. And I think being able to identify that within the research agenda, like Martha mentioned, being able to grow and build those connections and learn and understand from other people's experiences is something that's quite exciting, and that we do have we have our initial concept of what the network looks like based on previous conversations, but I think it's something that we can adapt and that's really exciting for the future as well.
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. There are so many things that excites me being part of this as a practitioner for over a decade in the anti-slavery and in anti-human trafficking sector. I have seen there are always tension between the community, the practitioner, and also the researcher. You know, when the researcher comes to the community, we as a practitioner always struggle to find a balance of showing the relevance to the community and also making sure that the knowledge that's produced out of that research is also again back to the community. There has been, I think, a disconnect. There are very few organizations that do good in terms of, bringing the communities to understand why this is being done, what are really the end results, and how they can also include that into their programmatic designs. But this has to be scaled up. We have to make sure that, as we said, one of our uniqueness in this network is the inclusivity, where we bring communities, where we bring practitioners and also researchers together. For instance, if we are trying to understand the trend of some exploitative situation, then that has to come back to the community, that has to come back to the design of the project, again, to benefit the community. So I do believe that such a network, of course, with addition of other members as members, will contribute a lot in this space. So I just want to add that.
Thank you, Daniel. And also for whoever is interested in joining the network, hopefully all of you here present today and people that work with you, your partners, your colleagues. Also clarification, like feel very welcome and free to suggest topics on which you feel that you have a certain experience that you would want to share. If you have happened to undergo a certain research project that you want to tell us about, to derive lessons from it, especially when it comes to perhaps the engagement with the community and the methodology and the ethics behind it. This is our space to build together, so just feel free to approach us with your own ideas also on what you would like to share, how you would like to share it. Again, if it's training, a presentation, or any kind of resource that you think can be helpful to make the network grow. This is a space for all of us to build together. So feel like actively, as you join us, feel an active part of the member and feel welcomed in whatever initiative you would want to suggest and lead. So, if there are any questions, again, please do drop them in the chat. Otherwise, we can start to wrap up today's events. As a quick reminder, the link to the website was put by Angela in our chat. It's dignifiedfutures.org. There you can find the link also to join us as a member of the network. And you can follow us also on social media, of course. And I'm really looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible being part of our community and working with the six of us to make it grow and really join forces in using research to make an impact. And yes, I'm very excited for the year ahead. Looking forward to different activities, and I'm hoping that you will also join us in thinking of ways in which we can support each other to make research more useful for the communities that we want to support. And thank you, Angela, for placing again and Nicole for the link. And yes, I hope that this is just the beginning of a beautiful community growing and making a change, making an impact. And thank you all for being today here with us and for wanting to learn about this initiative. Just as a final remark, the recording of today's event will be shared on YouTube, so you can also share then the link with anyone that you know was interested and couldn't be here today. So we will follow up with the link once the recording has been uploaded. And again, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to welcoming you to the network.